That's right, community. It's time for AppSec Now, a DevCentral podcast focused on the latest threats and happenings in the application security world. We'll be featuring custom curated content from F5's Security Incident Response Team and relevant data from F5 Labs to keep you up to date on the absolute latest in AppSec now. Hey community, Aubrey here with DevCentral and just bringing you the 30th installment of AppSec Now. And with me, I've got Malcolm Heath, Chase Abbott, and Megazone. How you guys doing today?
Good.
Great. Yeah.
Good.
Good. It's a Monday morning, so
a little bit early.
A little early. Yeah, sorry for you West Coasters. That's I know it's a challenge, but it's better than 6 a.m. I gotta say, I've done a couple of those.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And want to say a special thank you to Darminder for putting this together this week. And if anyone does not know the purpose of AppSec Now, we are going through and talking about the latest in application security news as curated by the F5 Security Incident Response Team. So I think we're ready to pile right into things today. I think this was an interesting week of news. Seems like we had a bunch of kind of classic things that occurred, but with, I guess, I don't know. I want to say they were done pretty well. Like it seemed like there was a lot of thought that went into some of these things. The first one going out here is the Coinbase phishing scam. And that is essentially, it sounds like the attack was urging people to migrate to this wallet. They passed their funds in there, but there was, what was it? They'd already had a recovery phrase that was assigned from the fish. And so the fisher then was able to just go in and drain the wallet.
Yeah, it's a social engineering. What we were saying before we got on was that it's a remix of a lot of classic things. I mean, they did some clever stuff here. They got past DKIM, SPF mail protections, so it came through looking like a valid email because they used SendGrid, which is used by a lot of companies to send mass emails out. And so you probably already have whitelisting rules, or your email provider accepts emails from them without flagging them as spam or forgeries or whatever. So they kind of used one exploit of the email system to get a mail into people's boxes to make it look legitimate. So that was a little bit clever. But yeah, basically the rest is social engineering. Hey, install this. We've had a lawsuit, and we have to make you migrate to a self-hosted wallet. We have to terminate, our cloud wallet, basically, or whatever you want to call it. Install this, and here's the phrase you need to use when you set it up so that it hooks up to your existing account, type thing.
Yeah, I thought that was actually pretty clever.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit upset that more people don't maybe understand some of the basics about how crypto wallets work if they're heavily invested in crypto. But I mean, that gets around. It's sort of funny. Like we often will be saying to people, don't give out your seed phrase, don't give out your password, don't give out the MFA code, whatever. And people get that part, but then if you present it just as a different thing, like here's this phrase to use. Don't worry about the technical implementation. It's nothing to do with your seed phrase. Suddenly it's like, oh, well, that must be different. I'll go ahead and do it, right?
That was the genius of it, because they're giving you detailed instructions. They didn't have to send any links.
Yeah.
And so because they were able to send through SendGrid and they passed all the stuff, like you said, MZ, there's no other methodology to determine that's going to be a problematic email, because otherwise SendGrid and some of the other recipient systems would look at the URLs within the email like, that's not a valid URL. There was no links. It was just instructions on how to give them access to a new wallet. It was beautiful.
Yeah, I worked for a mailer before. Like that's where I ended up learning all my F5 stuff. Like right before I came to F5, I spent a few years at a mass mail company. I think we had mass mail company. No, but we had virtual mail for a couple of really sizable web properties, like some of the, I can't say what they are obviously, but Some of the more sizable, like older web properties, like not AOL, but kind of their peers from back in the late 90s, that kind of stuff. And we also had like smaller corporations. But one of the things that we found was, especially on some of the more public ones, we would find people just make account after account after account after account, and we did find a lot of that same kind of thing. It never occurred to me that somebody would be using that basically for the DKIM thing, but kind of talking to you guys ahead of time, it made me realize, okay, wow, we spent so much time making sure that our feedback loops were set and DKIM was always on. Boy, that's kind of scary that you
and I think it's
phishing scam in that.
It's the account creation part, which, like, I'm trying to think, putting on my old email admin hat, I'm trying to figure out how you would actually prevent this without some sort of secondary infrastructure to validate origin through sender. I mean, because that does exist.
Yeah.
But if I'm a malicious user and I have the ability to create bogus accounts, SendGrid has to assume that's good unless there's some sort of secondary validation. Like you can do secure IP addresses. I mean, theoretically, you're supposed to be doing that with SPF between you and them, but that's easy to fake.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything actually good to prevent this besides some sort of messed up DNS sec between origin and SendGrid.
Well, the way that we would find out about it was we would get blacklisted. So
Yeah.
that was kind of it. Like,
I had a salesperson blacklist us.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in this case, I mean, it does sound like the way they got past SendGrid was because they used an address of noreply@akamai.com, which SendGrid, I'm sure what happened there was Akamai uses SendGrid, and so SendGrid was configured to say, oh, it came from Akamai, or this address is probably the address Akamai
with an address from Akamai. Yeah.
Right. And so the SendGrid's like, oh, you're an approved user. You already have an account. Here you go. And so the question, that sounds like what Akamai is looking into from the articles is, how did this happen? Was it a straight up forgery? Did they manage to forge stuff so it came from Akamai and SendGrid didn't validate that properly? Or did they manage to do something? Did they manage to do something at Akamai to exploit Akamai to send an email from them? You know, it's like, it sounds like that's being looked into. That's not clear at this point, but it's a chain of things. You know, there's probably, it was the Swiss cheese thing. Like there's probably, they got all the holes to line up. You know, that they managed to do something to get. SendGrid probably accepts email from people who have accounts, but they were able to fake that out and then have, because it came from SendGrid, end user email systems, Gmail and everything. We're like, oh, SendGrid, you're good. We know you're a good sender.
I kind of wish they had the source. I mean, a scrubbed source message header so we could look at it.
Be interesting. But yeah, in this case, it's the case where you basically you fooled the meatware, the wetware, into doing something, and but you got, like Malcolm, you said, I think a lot of people who use these things, they're not technical. You know, a lot of people are doing things with crypto, and it's like, oh, it's so easy these days. Install it, set up a wallet. It's, you know, anyone can do crypto, and people don't understand like what a recovery phrase, the power that gives you if you have someone's recovery phrase. You know,
that's the thing that should be written down manually and put into a vault. Kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're like your seed phrase, your recovery phrase. We've seen people get hacked into, I shouldn't even say hack, but lose their crypto in the past because they've done things like had it on they've been doing this kind of a call, shared their screen, and had like their phrase on the screen. Right? All it takes is
how fast that happens. Yeah.
I remember I saw somebody get caught. I think it was a Twitch streamer who did that, like switched the monitors and forgot they had their wallet open and had their like phrase open. Yeah. And like before he realized what they did, and before they could get in there, their money was gone.
This is why we can't have nice things in crypto.
True. And it's funny. I think all you'd need to do is take a look at one valid Akamai, email to see. Like if you just take a look at the headers, you're going to see exactly where that email went through. So,
but it also exposes. I mean, I know we're beating this up. It exposes the limitations that email has for security. It's never been robust.
No.
It's kind of like time servers. That's one of those scary things that nobody thinks about. Like if you can skew time well on the internet, you're going to break everybody. Maybe I shouldn't have just said that out loud, even though we all think about it. But it's
We
the
all
thing
know
with
it.
email. It's just one of those, like, there is no PKI for email. There's no shared key between me and my outbound. There's nothing to prevent this. Because if you go in and you look at all of your message source, you can see the whole chain of IPs.
Yep.
And if you're not good, your internal email structure, transport servers, all the way out through all your proxy stuff. But there's nothing really good besides some TLS just for making sure the transport's okay. There's no identity.
Yeah,
Yep.
and it's almost everything. It's a layer cake built on top of the original SMTP, right?
Yeah.
Like we have it, so you've got SPF, you have DKIM. Oh, what's the other one? That's really
DMARC.
DMARC.
DMARC, yeah.
DMARC's just a handshake saying I'm using all this other stuff too.
Yeah, basically. So you've got all this stuff layered on top, but it's basically trying to secure something that was never designed to be secured, and because it was all, and there are faults in the system, and I think because I see this in my daily life outside of work, it also stops legit stuff from getting through.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because example, my wife and I, she has an email account at a different. I have an email account at one provider. She's an email account at a different provider. That's that long-term accounts, so we don't want to get rid of them or change them. And I have things like some of the e-bills we have that come in, so we all see everything. I have a forwarder set up that would forward some of the emails from some utilities and stuff we have to her, so she can see them too. But some of those don't work because that chain of authentication, when I forward an email from one of our utility companies to her, it gets bounced because the chain broke somewhere in there. So that's like a perfectly legit use case that fails. Meanwhile, you can do illegitimate stuff and get through. So it's a frustrating system because it's this weird layer cake of stuff that's been glued together.
I feel relevant though because I still know it. So
well, we're not going to have to worry about it for too much longer because if my prediction is correct, AI will be destroying email within the next 5 minutes or so. So kind of moving on, actually, we had another interesting old one. As we mentioned, some of these were just really remixes, right? BRUTED. This is a tool that's used explicitly to breach VPNs and firewalls. It looks like it's just for mass credential stuffing and seems to be targeting explicitly some really big names: Sonic Wall Net Extender and Palo Alto Global Protect, Cisco AnyConnect, among others. I didn't see us on the list, which is good with APM, but knock on wood. Let's knock on wood with that one. So
we're probably somewhere on the feature list.
Somewhere, maybe down a little further, because Any thoughts on this one? I mean, I thought it was cool that they used a proxy to really kind of obscure the infrastructure that they had.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. This is a knock on any of the vendors' name. I don't think I want to say that. It's not like these products are so flawed, right? It's because what they're finding is basically it's the configuration and not using good credentials, not using multi-factor. It's how you use it matters a lot. Like the tool can be as secure as you can make it, but if you don't use secure credentials, you use like easy to guess passwords, easy to brute force passwords, you don't do MFA. In this day and age, it's not that secure. That's the weak link. And I think it goes for F5 products as well. Our guidance to our customers is always use good credentials. Use to MFA whenever possible. Don't put admin stuff or any interfaces on the internet in the first place. All these things. It's just because of the way the world is. And the guidance is pretty basic too. Monitor for unusual activity. No firewall is going to keep everyone out indefinitely. The whole point is to slow people down so you can notice somebody's trying to get in. The same thing for any other product. If you should have alerts set up for login attempts from weird addresses that you shouldn't be expecting, or lots of probing attacks, or you doing rate limiting on login attempts. All these things. These are all pretty standard advice for any admin, right, guys?
Yeah,
I think so. One thing to note that is pretty cool, though, it looks like a list of malicious IPs is being collected and provided by Electric IQ. So if you are somebody who uses lists, then definitely make sure that, Electric IQ is up to date. Yeah, maybe every 5-minute update would be nice.
Eclectic
Yeah,
IQ.
Oh, sorry, eclectic,
eclectic.
not electric.
I misread that too.
Eclectic.
That linked article, their blog, goes into a huge amount of detail, and it points out too that a lot of the reason why we actually know anything about this was because there was a leak from somebody who was, I believe, involved in the gang that operates this, like in Black Pasta, who got pissed off because they were attacking some Russian institutions or something. So there was some beef apparently, and somebody decided to drop a bunch of chats. So great, thanks whoever that was. But it's really fascinating to me actually how detailed and uh, pretty sophisticated this. I mean, you think of brute forcing as being a relatively straightforward thing, or cred stuffing, like that's not that complex. What I found really interesting about this specific piece of software, though, was that it was actually doing a lot of domain enumeration and attempting to try to find as many endpoints as possible
Yeah.
that were valid to try to go after things, and that's really smart. And it would seem to be doing it in a pretty intelligent way. So that's actually a pretty significant bit of information.
Yeah,
I
the
like that a lot.
scanning, the assumption of the prefixes for the domains that they were scanning kind of cracked me up. I'm like, are we really that unoriginal? So I'm going to look for VPN dot remote dot mail dot. Like, why aren't we naming things after Pokemon or something like that? Just confuse the world or something.
Yeah, I think we are. I mean, we've seen it internally. I've seen it everywhere I've worked. People name things. I remember I worked at a company where our core server was named Server, which always caused funny error messages because you get like server is down or something. You get,
or it's a great honeypot. One of the two.
Yeah. But I think a lot of it too is like you're telling your customer, especially if you have to pick your VPN server as an end user, or you're using browser based or something, you end up telling your users you don't want like random gook.domain.
Yeah.
So you're like, let's go to VPN.company, and so a lot of these server names are obvious for the humans.
Right. Well, I don't know. It's an interesting one, just to see, brute force kind of take a headline.
No, I think, but it just there was some elegance to what they were doing. So I mean, you can admire your enemy, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
This wasn't this run of the mill brute force. They were doing some clever things to keep going.
And I guess
absolutely. Even to the point of getting SSL certs and looking at the common names and so forth. That's smart. Gotta give them props. Nicely done.
And before heading on, I do want to mention that it did look like all of the servers that were involved in that infrastructure were tracked down to Russian IP space. It looks like the attackers also were communicating in Russian as well.
Yeah, definitely read that source article. It was a very good dissection of the whole thing.
Agreed. Yeah.
Cool. Well, we're going to move on to ObscureBat, another malware, right? And this is, it appears that they were leveraging fake captchas and rootkits, right? It's been a bit since we've seen that kind of thing. So
I just got to start off right off the bat saying I love the name. It just cracks me up every time I read it.
ObscureBat.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah.
It uses social engineering to install a rootkit, basically. It seems like it's a relatively sophisticated thing. It does some modifications to the registry, installs a fake driver. Sophisticated activity, I would say. And uses API hooking, a bunch of other, anti-detection techniques. Very nicely done. I'm just kind of, I don't know, amused or happy to see a user mode rootkit in the news, because I thought that we had all decided those were, old news a long time ago, and it moved on to kernel level rootkits and other things like this, or even just who needs a rootkit? Let's just put some malware on the box. So that was kind of neat. Yeah.
I think I have shown my colors on this 100 times on our podcast over the past couple of years, but that Windows is one of those systems where user level rootkit is somewhat functional, right? I sort of I haven't seen a lot of success on Unix systems with user mode stuff.
No, there's a reason.
Yeah, exactly. There is a reason. But
but it's a classic. I mean, fake drivers and things. I mean, this is like all the stuff when I first started getting into cybersecurity a few decades ago. Like same thing again, right? Back then, it was the older versions of Windows and DOS and things. It's a very similar type things. This article could have been right out of the 90s. Of tricking users into downloading and installing malware, which put the rootkit on your box, and like it's like memory lane. It's just
I'm waiting for today is Michelangelo's birthday to show up sooner or later again. Like everything old is new. Come on.
I should send you guys a link to a talk I saw at a conference one time that was the history of malware, and it was brilliant because it went from the very earliest ones that were just gonna like sort of tease you almost, all the way up to
innocent. They were fun.
Yeah. All the way up to like
we'll rewrite your
the
master
cryptors and wipers and stuff that we see now. So yeah,
Cookie Monster malware and stuff.
I love.
Well, a little more into the future. I think this next one was the an Android spyware case. So KoSpy is a North Korean Android spyware campaign, and it is funny because I reading through this, the one thing that kind of got me, and I already told you guys at the beginning, enabling Google Play Protect. Well, Google Play Protect is a portion of the Android OS, which should offer some defense against this. Any thoughts on this one here? It seems like there are a couple of different persistent threat teams that are involved.
I have words. I have an emotional issue against. We were talking about this before it started. I hate apps. Like if your website's going to be that bad that you need to write an app to encapsulate your HTML5, find a new job. Or you're building that app to encapsulate your website so you can bypass my browser restrictions. No. So I can count. I have one page of apps. That's it. Like if I go to the Android screen, that's it. I don't know what apps these people want to download that contain this stuff, like the most random things. It just confuses me. And it's available through the Play Protect store because it can't do code level inspection of everybody's source on GitHub. So of course stuff's going to go through, but you're still installing some pretty weird software on your phone in order to get this to happen.
Well, it looks like it actually, the core of it may not actually have very much suspicious to it to begin with, because it dynamically loads plugins to do the stuff post install. So
it's also a lot of these things on Android are going to require permissions.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm not without installing and testing it myself, which I'm not going to do. It sounds like, because I know, look, anything I install, even if you sideload an APK, if it wants any modern version,
the phone asks you.
Yeah, any modern version of Android anyway. Unless you're running a really ancient version, you want access to my SMS messages. It's like, hey, do you want this app to have this permissions? Call logs, location. It can get annoying these days to the point. I mean, it's good, but it's how many times you get, hey, can I have this permission? Can I have this permission? Can I have this permission? I think maybe that could be a problem of Chicken Little, of people who've gotten used to just saying whatever, like yes, just shut up.
Yeah.
I always
channeling my mom on that one. Like,
yeah,
I'm sitting next to her watching her laptop. I'm like, did you read that dialogue box? What did that dialogue box just say? You just clicked yes. She's like, I don't know. Yeah. Damn it, Mom. Give me your computer. We're going to just wipe this and start over. I love her. But
I mean, I think it's what we do. I always check when it's like, hey, can this app have this permission? I'm like, why does it want that? No, like,
yeah,
because even apps, I have a lot more. I have like 4 pages of apps. I use a lot of apps, but the when it asks for things like, I want access to your phone calls. Why does this app need to access my and sometimes I'll look into it and be like, okay, that's a legitimate need, but like sometimes you're like, why does this like fast food app want to access my phone? Like
contacts.
The phone functionality.
Yeah. Or God, I was like, I had like a recipe app on my iOS device in this case, and it was like, this application would like to access your microphone. I'm like, excuse me, what?
Yeah, no thanks.
Why does a recipe application need to access my microphone?
Now, how many of you actually go and check your permissions? Like who's trying to look at calendar, who's looking at, like, I do
Oh
it
yeah,
weekly.
I
yeah.
do it.
I do once in a while, and I also
do
have
once
the
in a while.
feature in Android that I'm not sure if iOS has this, but Android has the apps that haven't been used in a while will automatically disable
Yes.
permissions you've
Love
given to it.
that feature.
So I have
Oh,
that turned
that's really
on.
nice.
Yeah.
I don't think iOS does that actually.
It will eject apps that you haven't used in a while. It literally just removes them from your phone.
Well, it doesn't remove the app, but it turns off the permissions.
Then the app fires up and is like, oh, can I have access to your calendar again? No, you do not need that avalanche warning system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I found the names of some of these were funny. It made me think of, like, browser utilities that people kind of do the same, like Phone Manager. And that's to note, by the way, if you're listening and not watching, the names of the programs that are being used for this KoSpy are Phone Manager, File Manager, Smart Manager, Cacao Security, and Software Update Utility. Just seems so basic, like, oh, I better not destroy that running process because it's a software update utility,
But I got to go to the App Store and download something called Phone Manager. What were you
Right.
doing to need Phone Manager? I don't know. This is just me.
Well, a lot of people I know people who like different boot managers, different like, so they probably have they're enticing people like, this allows you to do these special features above and beyond the built-in software. Because there's a whole market out there for different bootloaders and on stuff for
That's
Android.
true. I would assume, though, if I'm doing different alternate boot loading, side channel, APK installs, I would be paying attention to this stuff.
You'd hope.
You assume.
You assume.
I think this one also, for me, collected some really creepy data. Like, it made me think, I wonder if these guys are going after some specific people with this
Probably.
spyware, because GPS location, videos, screenshots, any keystrokes. So the GPS location thing got me. Like, why do most hackers need to know where I am? Well, if they really need to know where I am.
Yeah, you never know what they're using this data from. I mean, putting the data they were collecting together, I see blackmail is a very, very possible thing. Especially if you catch somebody, texting their mistress or whatever, and or getting illicit screenshots, and then knowing where to look. You can reach out to somebody and go, "We know you were here at this time. You said this to this person. Here's an audio recording of you doing something you shouldn't have been doing."
Let's not forget, this is stuff associated with North Korean threat actors.
Yeah.
Right.
So, I mean, North Korea has a long history of tracking, intimidating, otherwise messing with people who disagree with them.
This is
both inside and outside of the country, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I think this is more along the lines of that. Like, let's go harass, intimidate, and otherwise mess with North Koreans overseas, or whoever who we want to hassle. So
the part that makes me wonder is, like, how did there didn't seem to be a lot of targeting. They basically had these things available for anyone to install. So I wonder if there was any kind of other related campaign that wasn't really covered in the articles of targeting a certain audience to download these things, or was it just a shotgun approach of, we'll blast this out there and then see who downloads it and just hope that by volume we get people who are interested.
Just a huge phishing net, just see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, looking at the screenshot from the article from the Google Play Store, it looks like it has 10 plus downloads, so not a huge number. Which sort of makes me think that you're probably right, that maybe there was some associated phishing campaign that the researchers didn't see, that was trying to get people to install. Yeah, a particular audience, rather. Yeah.
That's the thing, is this approach, if you just do it as a phishing net, there are so many apps for go to the App Store, search for any app of any type you want, and you get so many hits. So getting your app to be downloaded more than a handful of times, either you have to be exceptional and somehow get the attention, or just have a lot of luck. Because I know sometimes when I've looked for apps to try to do different things, like you're like, okay, which of the 1,000 apps do I want to install that isn't malware, right?
Yeah, that always makes me so paranoid.
or isn't some kind of home proxy device as well. Like,
Oh yeah, absolutely. We should at some point talk about the residential
residential proxy.
proxy networks. It's a
That's a
fascinating topic.
huge issue. I think I told you guys a while back. I put up a new pfSense firewall, and man, it's the number of just like, and I always do it, but I'm gonna do it again. These type of things, man, it's
Everything's so chatty.
amazing.
Everything's so chatty.
Why it needs to talk back to China all the time is beyond me. Well, I think it's
Nothing
beyond
is allowed to talk to anything on my home network.
right.
And now you got to do the same thing for your
So
car.
restrictive.
I mean, there was an article in the news that I saw about a guy who has a Cybertruck, and after he got it, he was blowing through his bandwidth limitations on his ISP, like his ISP connection, because it was uploading, 900 gigs or something a month of data, and just insane.
Well, we knew that as part of Tesla's AI initiative is they went to high def video uploads so they can train their self-driving
There you go.
functionality. Yeah. And so I'm kind of curious, the more you drive the Tesla, when you plug that thing in at home, it's going to then upload that telemetry, and it is getting large.
Mm-hmm. Very large.
Yep. Oh yeah.
And not to pick on Tesla, like a lot of cars these days do something along the same lines, right? Maybe not video, a high def video, but definitely a lot of telemetry gets sent. So.
I have a lot of geo blocking enabled on my outbound communication at home, and it's great, but then it's also kind of a problem for motherboard updates, driver updates. I gotta go turn off the geo blocking, get my motherboard BIOS update, turn on my geo blocking.
Mm-hmm.
Owlcat Games, what used to be out of Russia, so I could never get any of the updates from them. But I feel better.
Got it. You got to do it these days. Honestly, there's just, like I said, like the amount of traffic that comes out of IoT devices is just ridiculous. Well, go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say I do not have a smart home. I'm one of those people. There was that joke where the technologist, they have everything connected, their thermostat, all that. The real engineer has a shotgun next to their 1993 laser printer in case it makes a funny noise. I'm that level of paranoid at home, so I actually honeypot my phone so I can watch the traffic on the way out just in case. And then if it's not a known device that I need on, it's off.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good way to be, for sure.
I went the other way. I'm just like our home. I have every smart device you can plug in, basically. I said, screw it. I've been on the internet for 30 years. There's nothing to hide anymore.
You keep warm from just the radiation level of all the devices. We haven't got to turn the heat on in ages.
Well, I think we are coming up close on time. But before we do call it, I did want to also mention that the CISA known exploited vulnerabilities catalog has also been updated. I am going to give a real quick screenshot of this just so anyone can kind of, if you're watching the podcast, you can see some of the updates. iOS had a little bit in WebKit, and there was a Juniper one, but the guidance here is really patch things.
Systems.
It should be noted that Microsoft has a lot of stuff, mostly NTFS based, that does require patching, but the patches are out there, so it looks like you can go ahead and update and be safe. Beyond that, Advantive has a couple, and Ivanti Endpoint Manager as well has a few.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're using any of those, make sure to update all your stuff. And that should be a general practice anyways. We want to make sure that we're keeping updated. Any final notes, gentlemen, before we kind of call this week quits?
Nope.
VulnCon's still coming up.
Hey. What are the dates on that?
April 7th to 11th, I believe, top of my head. That's totally off the top of my head.
Okay.
Monday to Thursday that week. Raleigh, North Carolina. Registration for in person is now $375, and virtual attendance is still $100. Registration is still open as of right now. I don't think we've sold out yet. So, well, a person will sell out very likely, but there is no cap on remote attendance. So
7th through 10th, according to the website MZ.
I got it right.
Yeah.
7th through 10th.
Sweet.
Okay.
Sweet. Anything exciting forthcoming from Labs, Malcolm?
So many things, but also I'm not going to tell you what they are yet. So, yeah, because I'm not entirely sure of publication dates, but we've got a bunch of really cool stuff about to come out. So,
Well,
keep an eye on f5labs.com.
/labs.
Or actually f5.com/labs or f5labs.com. Either way. Same
Really?
content.
F5labs, okay.
Yeah, it's just a redirector. It's no big deal, but yeah.
They took away
please
our
keep an eye.
DevCentral.com. That's no longer a thing, unfortunately. So you guys are lucky. And on that note, thanks community for joining us this week on AppSec Now. We really appreciate it. Don't forget to click like and subscribe and share with a friend, or if you have people like your parents that need some of these pieces of advice to hey, don't click that thing without reading what it is, etc. We're good for that as well.
Delete your apps.
Yes. Delete your apps.
Delete all your apps.
All right. We will see you next week on AppSec Now.
Okay.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye, y'all.
Thanks for checking out AppSec Now, a DevCentral podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. And if so, please consider clicking like, subscribing, or even writing a review. Available on all major podcast platforms as well as YouTube.